Welcome to the Teahouse chat. So if you've never been to the Teahouse chat before, this is our monthly get-together where we discuss different subjects, especially about traditional Chinese medicine or Qigong, Taiji. And this month we actually had a topic this month, so we're going to try and venture into having some formal discussion around a particular subject. And the subject this week is about belief stories, about stories that run in the backgrounds, and I'll set that up a little bit. But before we do that, I have to formally invite you. So we're having a Teahouse chat, so I'm going to pour you a cup of tea first. So I know you can't drink it, but ceremoniously, I've got to pour you one. And I'll pour you a cup of tea, and then I'll pour myself one. Yep, there we go. Oops. And tea, if you all know about Chinese tea, it goes everywhere when you pour it. There we go. And cheers. Cheers for coming to have a cup of tea with me. Very cool. So I want to set up, before we start, I'll just set up a little bit of the backstory to what belief stories are. You could, of course, during this time, you can ask any questions about anything, but because we have a topic, I'm going to set up the topic today. And the topic's about beliefs or limiting belief stories. And they're stories that we have running in the back in our minds. It's a mind thing, it's not a heart thing. It's a mind thing that we've been grown up to believe that are true, whether it's come from your school, whether it's come from society, whether it's come from your own self, about stories how we think we should be and how we think everybody else should be. And these stories we can spend our whole life on being judgmental of other people because they're not living up to what we think how they should behave. And so these stories affect us in lots and lots of ways. And a lot of it comes in, the theory is, of course, that you bring your karmic stories in with you when you come into this world. And then you get them reinforced, these stories reinforced by your parents, because they're going to amplify the story to lock it into your psyche. And then the theory is you spend the rest of your life letting that story go and go back to find out that that actually is not true. And so that's what we're talking about today. So that's the first part, is about the stories. And it's the stories like not being good enough, not being heard, not being loved, all of those stories about thinking that something's meant to happen because that's not happening. And we get it confirmed by our parents, we get it confirmed by society, we get it confirmed by school. And so how we break free from these stories, because what these stories do is they limit us into a one way of thinking that this is the way it should be, and we lose the opportunity to see the world in a bigger way, and how we see ourselves in a bigger way, and free from the stories. So that's a little bit of a background understanding of the stories. What's my understanding of the story? I'm not saying it's the only way or that there is the definitive answer of that. I'm just saying that's my way, and then if I describe it like that, you'll understand it, how I see it. And it's not just necessarily the way I see it, it's the way traditional Chinese medicine sees it too, these stories running in the background. Lots of people do work around these. They've done, very famous people have done a lot of work around limiting belief stories. Anyway, so if you want to ask questions, all you have to do is go to the bottom of your Zoom thing, and it's got a little thing there, and it says, you push the button, and it says you can put your hand up, and you can raise your hand, and you push the button, and you can push your hand up, and I'll call you. But I'll just have a look. I'll just go to what it's called. I think it's called participants. Hang on. I need glasses to see that one. At the bottom of the Zoom meeting, it says reactions. Go to reactions at the bottom, and you can push that, and then it'll come up. So you can put your hand up, so I can see your hand up. So if you have any questions to ask. So anybody got any questions? Anybody got any questions or observations today? So off you go. Yep, there you go. You got your hand up. You're on turn.
All right. So tell me how to stop the stories in my head, though.
Well, they are in your head. That's the problem. So the stories, they're a mental thing.
I know all this stuff, but then, they still run, and I'm not sure I still haven't worked out how to switch them off. So I'm asking, how do I do that?
Good. Okay. So there's various schools of thought around how you don't necessarily, you can't switch them off, because a lot of these things actually happen. If you felt abandoned when you were a child, and you actually were abandoned, you were left at school by yourself and your parents forgot to pick you up. That's a real life situation, and you have a real life memory of that. So it's a real life thing. How you break the construct of that is not that it didn't happen, because it did. I acknowledge it happens. It's acknowledging what was really going on at the time. It wasn't what you thought it was. And the story was that you weren't being abandoned. Maybe your mother had something that came up, or your father that came up, that made them being late. And it wasn't because they were abandoned, because the last thing they want to do is abandon you. Your parents, well, I shouldn't say that, because sometimes people do abandon people. But in theory, that they didn't want to do that. So there's a reason why that happened. And if you go back to the true reason of what actually happened and realize it wasn't what you thought it was, then it was because that they were talking to Auntie Marge, and Marge had a big dilemma going on in her life, and they got carried away with the conversation. Oh, I've got to go and pick up, and they were late picking you up. But it wasn't because they abandoned you. It's because something else came up that made them being late, or they were driving there and they had run into an accident and they had a big traffic jam. Or it could be just your mother's just not good at being early. But that's her story. But it's still got nothing to do with you being abandoned. It's just that she's just a late person. And there's nothing wrong with being late. That's just what she does, as long as you don't think there's something wrong with that and there's something wrong with you being abandoned. And you disempower the story by finding the reality of the truth. Now, while I'm talking about this, I've just thought of one of mine, so I'll use an example. So I remember when I was young, I would have been about 2 years old. I can remember what I was doing. I can remember this event. And I was running around the lounge with my dad was sitting on the floor, and I was running around the lounge. And I tripped over my father's leg, and I hit my head on the corner of the coffee table, and I split my eye open. It's that scar there. I've got a few of them. That's one of them. The other ones were rugby injuries. They split my eye open. And I remember my mother going absolutely crazy at me and telling me not to be so stupid. Look, you've hurt yourself. You shouldn't have been running around. And so from that idea, from that bereavement I got, berating I got from a mother, fixed a story in my mind that if you have lots of fun, you could hurt yourself. That's the story from a 2-year-old, because I just got told off and she went crazy at me about being reckless and being stupid and not being paying attention. And I'm 2, by the way. So does a 2-year-old know about that? And so that story locked inside my head about if you do anything crazy like that, you could hurt yourself, or don't have fun, because if you have fun, you could always hurt yourself. So that's the story. So it got anchored at 2 years old. So then I had the story for a long, long time. And I remember going back, and I did some work, because I've done a lot of work on the stories, to go back to disempower them. And I went back and found out the reason why my mum got so angry with me had nothing to do with me, because she felt she had failed as a mother to protect me. And because she'd failed to protect me, and I've got blood pouring out of my eyes, she thinks she was a bad mother. And she got angry with me because she's feeling that she's a bad mother because she didn't protect me. How's that? And when I found that, I go, oh, it had nothing to do with me. It was to do with my mum's reaction. It wasn't, because I was just having fun. I was just playing. And when you play accident, you do have accidents. So that took that story around. So now I play, I have fun, and I don't have this fear of getting hurt anymore. It's gone, because I know it wasn't that. And so that's an example. I just use my own example, but you'll have your own examples of how this plays out. So in answer to your question, you need to go back, Robin, to the story, where it happened, where the first incident. If you bring up the story, you think about it. There's lots of ways of doing this. This is just our way. Think of the very, very first instant of when you felt that feeling, whether it's abandoned, whether it was unloved or resentment or fear, the first time you ever felt fear of being by yourself, whatever it was. And then go to that feeling, and then sit inside the feeling and go, so what was really happening at the time? Was it actually, because as a child, the child has no term of reference. The 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years, you don't know the bigger picture, but so you're only reacting to what you think it is. And then ask yourself, was that the actual truth, what was happening right then and then at the time? Or was there something else? Or was there something else that I missed, that I didn't see? That something else was happening and it wasn't what I thought it was. And that'll help you break that. Now, if you do NLP or things like that, that's a different system where what it does is stop you defaulting back to the memory. So as soon as you get triggered by somebody something happened to you, you're in your house by yourself and you feel something and you feel that feeling, oh, I feel unsafe. Instead of triggering back to the childhood trauma, it actually takes you somewhere else, and it takes you and redirects your mind to a different story. So instead of leading back to the old story, it redirects it off to a different story, and NLP does that very cleverly. There's lots of different ways of doing this. As I say, this is just a particular one. I'm just talking about a couple. And so it redirects it off so that when you get that feeling, you go somewhere else, and you go the feeling of, actually, I'm really safe. The house is locked. Everything's locked. I'm safe. Nothing's going to happen to me. And so it doesn't have the access back to the original story. Or you can go back to the original story and you can break the truth around the story, whether it's actually true or not, or actually what really happened. And that's a different thing. And so these are a couple of ideas. As I say, there's lots of different versions of how to do this, and people have been working on how to break these impactful stories on their life. And my first book, the book I wrote, there's about 43 different stories I had and how I broke them. The whole book's about it, about each of these stories, and they're quite common. We're not unique. We don't have the only unique ones that have these stories. Where humans carry lots of the same ones. Yeah. Anyway, is that useful to you, Robin?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah. It's a work in progress, by the way. It's not something just to instantly go away. I wish it was just that simple. I think part of our journey in life is to desensitize these programs and to see the truth, the reality, away from the little mind that created the illusion of this, and to break free from that. And I think it just takes time. Anyway, thanks for your question. Mohammed. Oh.
Hi everyone. Hi Peter. Thank you so much for this chat. So actually I had a question. Sometimes you have some stories that we don't really know from where they come from.
Yeah.
And usually it can be related to something that happened when we were like 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, and luckily for you, you remember that story. But it's very difficult to. I mean, at least for me, it was challenging to remember the stories where I was very, very young. So how do you go back in time that far and remember what happened and where is it coming from?
So that's a great question. So that opens another door again. So now we're going to modalities like psychotherapy. We're going to hypnotherapy, or you're going into rebirthing. You're going into where they take you back in time, and you can go back into your consciousness. Now, mentally, we can't remember it, but subconsciously you can. And so these therapies or these modalities go back into your subconscious, where you remember every second of your life. Every second is in memory inside yourself. Our mind can't access every second. It only usually can pick up the really big events because we remember them. They're locked in. Like there's a big spike in the memory. But everything's been remembered. So what the psychotherapy or what the hypnotherapy, I use that one, or what do they call it? Journey work, when you go back as well. You go back, but you go into your psychology, you go back into your consciousness and your subconscious, and then you access through the subconscious. So you can get back to the story. You can go back to traumas inside the womb when you're inside your mother, when she has a trauma and you get affected by it because you pick up the energy of your mum. And you can go back and you can work out what was happening to your mum at the time, and you can break the effect of that and know that it's actually nothing to do with you and it's what your mum was dealing with something herself. So there's lots of these modalities help that one. And now there's another one again, which you've opened a door, because the next one is, what about if it didn't happen with your mum during the time when she was the 9 months when you were inside your mum? It didn't happen when you were 1, 2, or 6 years old, but it happened some other time. Goes right back to the consummation of you as a soul into this planet. And then we go back before then, but who were you before this soul came into the physical form? Who was that? Now that can have its own stories. They're the karmic stories you bring in from outside. They're not even related to your parents or your own experience of life. You're bringing them in, so sometimes you can bring them in and they're random things and go, where's that come from? You can have a fear of water. You can have a fear of being in water, and you've never in your life ever had a drowning experience. You've never fallen over in your bath. You ask your mum, did I ever fall into the water in the bath? No. Have I ever drowned when I was a kid in the pool? No. And you have no record of anything happening in this life that had anything to do with water. But this funny thing you have is fear of water. You have a fear of drowning. And so then we go back to the concept, because I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I mean, I have my own beliefs around it. But then you go back in the idea of past lives, where somewhere in one of your lives before you got reincarnated back into this one, you actually drowned. And the memory of that's in your cellular memory, it's in your programming that comes into the new one. It's already there. And so if you don't get it reinforced by having a drowning experience in this one, but it's still there. And I use that drowning because I've had the experience of that. And so it can be coming from somewhere else. So part of that is to go back and reprogram and to break that belief that it's because at the end of the day it's not actually true. And another story, I had a person, when I was young, I was working in a swimming pool complex, and one of the people brought in a guy. Was it a guy? I can't. Yeah, it was a guy. It wasn't a woman. He brought in a guy who was terrified of the water, and he brought him into the pool, and he wouldn't even walk into the door where the pool was. He wouldn't even walk past the door. He sat outside from the windows and looked outside and looked into the pool. That terrified. It was bizarre. And his therapist, over time, got him to walk in and sit down on the chair beside the pool. And then in time, because it was just getting familiar that nothing's going to happen. You're sitting beside the pool, nothing's happening, are you okay? And now the memory as well, I'm sitting beside the pool, nothing's happened. So it's overriding the memory that something's going to happen because now nothing happened. So he'd come and sit beside the pool again, and he'd do that every week for a week. Every day, come and sit beside the pool, do nothing else, just sit beside the pool. And now he has a whole week's worth of experience that that's not going to happen. And then so the next one he did, he walked in, and he got him to go and sit beside the pool. Didn't touch the water, just sit beside it. Not on the chair beside it, go and sit beside the pool. Another week, sitting beside the pool, and then nothing happened. Then he got him to put one leg in the pool. This is over weeks. Put one foot in the pool and sat there for a week with just one foot in the pool. Terrified, going like sweating, terrified. And then this goes on, and he ended up doing a foot, a leg, then 2 feet, 2 legs, sitting on the side with his knees in the water. Got him sitting, and then he got him to submerge himself in the shallow end of the baby's pool where he was up to his knees. Then he got him to a different pool where he was up to his waist. And this is over the course of 6 months. And in the end, he was swimming. And all it was to break the story. To break the story and how he did it was by confirming that nothing was going to happen, even though he thought his fear that something was, but he was in experience, he hears, well, actually, no, nothing did happen. I had this story that something was going to happen, but when I did it, actually nothing happened. And then he ended up swimming, which was, it's an incredible story, and I witnessed that in the time when I was there. It was a very special thing about these stories that not necessarily happened when we were young. He had that one right before then. And so I wanted to share that with you anyway, to understand the principle of that. And how it is we're breaking the power of it by the reality that it's actually not true. We think it's true. We're reacting to it as true, but if you actually unlock it, it's actually not true at all. It's not what you think it is. It's definitely not what a lot of 3-year-olds thought it was. It's definitely as an adult. So hopefully that's helped. I'm not sure if there's more questions that you'd like to ask about that. You're very welcome to ask.
Yes, it makes sense. Thank you so much, Peter.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I mean, I'm just trying to help people get out of these. These stories control people's lives. They control the way they interact with themselves. They can control the way they interact with other people. And if you break free from these stories, you live in a very different sort of freedom in your life. And you watch yourself react. I watch I react to my wife. But she's perfect. She has the other side of my stories. Because you're drawn to people for some reason. Well, I don't know why we do this. We're crazy human beings. We're drawn to partners who carry the other side of your story. I carry hers and she carries mine. So she triggers my story. And so she's the best thing in the world, because I just wanted to keep doing that. So I keep getting to watch what I'm reacting to and go, okay, what am I feeling right now that I'm reacting to that? Because it's just a story. It's just a reaction that I have with that. And over the time, I've got less and less reactive to it, where she says something and now I don't react to it because I know it's not actually true. But I'm not saying I've got it perfect yet. I still react. She still reacts to me. But we both know we do this, which is crazy, because it's just a mental thing. Because in our heart connection is way beyond that. It's way beyond all of that stories and blah. It's just this. It's just that. But when we're in our mind, oh my God, the mind's just got all these opinions and things and and this crazy set of values in life and how it should be. It's just tricky. But anyway, part of it I think is to be free from that and see life through and have the understanding of what it really is. And I think that's what sets you free. Yeah, anyway.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very good. You're very welcome. Thanks for asking. It's a great question. Any more? Any more questions today? A cup of tea while you're thinking.
Maybe one more from me.
Yeah, go.
I was curious, actually, I'm not familiar with Tai Chi, any practice like this. I would be interested to know, how does Tai Chi, for example, help with the stories or wrong beliefs or a deeper knowledge of ourselves? Is there a link there that we can actually explore with Tai Chi?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So the answer is yes. And I'll explain how it happens. So Tai Chi and Qigong, similar. So if we think of Qigong as the medical practice of moving the energy around your body and making yourself healthy by all the energy flowing, having lots of energy, and it helps to do that. The Tai Chi is a martial art which uses your energy inside your body to interfere with the energy of the other person. And so then it's hard to fight somebody if they've got no power in their arms. Yep. And so part of that is to interfere with the other person's energetic field. So that's the martial. But it's using the same principle, still understanding the energy of your body and his energy or her energy, whatever it is, and how you affect that martially. So that's the Tai Chi. And it's got all these different movements and things in the Tai Chi. They're all martial, but it's always about moving, about their energy moving, your energy moving, about rotation, about moving off your center so they can't touch your energy and you move your energy. So it's all this. It's a very beautiful thing. And it's a lifetime practice. And the Qigong's a medical piece. So the question is, how does that help with your stories? Well, what it does, because I was actually talking to somebody, interesting enough, I was talking to somebody this morning who's doing case studies for the level 2 Qigong teacher study and for the Qigong teachers training she's doing. And part of it, you do case studies, and she has a case study at the moment. I don't divulge name to keep the security of that. And the question is how these stories are interfering with her, and she's using the story to hide another story. So because she doesn't want to feel the pain or the grief, so she created a different story so she doesn't have to feel that one. And what I said to her, what she needs to do is she's using things externally outside of it to occupy her mind so she doesn't think of the grief. And I said, so the easiest way to do that is, because that'll work for a while, but the problem is when you stop doing whatever you do to take away the grief comes back. Part of it is that she needs to be inside her own heart. She needs to find out and she's feeling unloved because she's lost somebody who loved her. And so part of that is to feel the love inside yourself so you can have self-love instead of looking for it outside of yourself or doing something to fill up the emptiness. Is to actually fill up the emptiness with self-love. And how you do that with Qigong and the Tai Chi is that you start bringing energy back into your heart. So your heart gets stronger, your lungs get stronger, your body gets stronger, and so your mind is now internally in yourself, and you're doing something for yourself. You're nourishing your own body, you're nourishing your own heart, you're nourishing your mind, you're doing something positive. You're building energy into your heart, so your heart's strong. You're building energy into your lungs, which where the grief is in Chinese medicine. You're building energy into the lungs, so the lungs are strong. So it overrides the grief factor, not the grief. You should be going through the grief because that's a normal function of the body. But what it does is give you a lot more power to go through the grief really well. If your body's really run down and tired, then the grief's overwhelming. Yep. But if you have more energy, then go through the grief, and it's a lot more easy to manage. As I say, normal function, you have to go through the grief because it's part of the love and care, because that person you love so much is not here anymore, and you have to have the letting go of that, and that's where the pain is. And so the Qigong, what it does is help you bring yourself back inside yourself, brings you in the present moment, brings you to yourself, out of your mind, into your physical body, and then you get to experience yourself as this other person. And then all those thoughts in your head and all the other ideas don't have so much power anymore, because now all of a sudden your focus is on something bigger than that, which is yourself and your connection to something outside of yourself. And that gets really big because of the practice, and it overrides the stories, because the stories become quite, they're not important until somebody says something to you and you react to it, and you're back in your mind again going, oh, you shouldn't say that. And then you're back at that place, and then you think, oh, and then you go back in your heart again, oh, actually they were saying that because they were actually caring for me, they weren't trying to put me down. And then you just change it again. So this whole dance of this learning how to get out of your mind and into your heart and live life in your heart and not in your head is a practice, and the Qigong helps you do that. The Tai Chi will help you do it as well. And so that's what the practice, it's not the only thing you get from Tai Chi or Qigong, it's just a particular thing we're talking about today, which is the emotional balance. We're talking about that one today. That's a part of the Qigong, and this is how, and that's how that helps you. Yep. Hopefully I said that in a very easy way to understand, because it's complicated, and hopefully that was clean enough anyway.
That's great. That's great. It's very inspiring. I want to give it a try.
Yeah, good. Do man. It's come and, if you've never done it before, come. I mean, I don't like to publicise. Well, I actually can because it's free. Every Tuesday morning, depends where you are in the time zone, I do live classes. And there's a beginner's class and there's an advanced class. The beginner's classes are all there on YouTube, and there's a whole library of them. They're all free. But if you want to come and do a live one, come and do a live one. We'll do it. And I do one different class every week. But go back and have a look at them, and just do a couple of the beginners classes and just get the feel for what it feels like. The good thing is you know who it is teaching you now, so you've talked to me now. So when you're talking, then it's me talking to you. It's not some stranger you don't know. Yep, and just try it and see how you go. You'll be surprised. It's one of these amazing things that gives you a very, very different aspect or a different expression of life. It gives you a different glimpse of what life is beyond your mind. And so I can't encourage you enough. So obviously you're meant to, so we'll see you on one of the classes. And if you come on one of the classes and you come in live, type in and say hello, because Sam, the film operator, he'll write it on a board, and I'll say hello to you, so you know that I know you're there. You're very welcome. Enjoy.